I'm going to talk about how you can potentially save money on therapy and neuropsych testing. So today I'm going to tell you about a network insufficiency or network deficiency or gap extension coverage. All of these are various terms that insurance companies use whenever they do not have enough providers who provide whatever the service is that you're looking for. So for instance, with me, a lot of parents are looking for somebody who specializes in autism when they come to me, and there are few providers in my area who do that. But even more so, there are few providers who are in network, and oftentimes providers have certain limitations, like they only see children under 6. So it makes it really hard for families to find an in-network provider who can provide the type of evaluation that they need. This is where your network insufficiency waiver comes into play. Typically, a waiver, like if you were doing it for therapy, would cover about 1 year of services. If you do not have a specialist, if you live in a small town and you have really long wait list, those could be reasons why you would want to pursue an out-of-network insufficiency waiver. One important thing to know about this is that it will not reduce the cost to your in-network rates. It's probably going to be in a middle ground somewhere. So for instance, if I'm going to make up numbers here, if I charge $200 per unit and your insurance company says we only allow $150, that's the allowable amount, then if you got approval for this waiver, you would get your coverage based off $150. 80% coverage, then it would be $120 out of that $150. But the provider you're seeing charges a cash pay rate of $200. So you have that $30 plus the remaining $50 to meet the full payment obligation for that provider. So you would end up paying $80 in total with an out-of-network or a network insufficiency waiver versus if you were to see a provider who's in-network. So it's not going to get you all the way down to in-network rates, but it's going to be helpful, right? Because $80 is better than $200. If you decide you want to pursue the network insufficiency waiver, then you're going to need a few pieces of information first. One is going to be your provider's NPI number. This is readily available on the internet. And then their tax ID, which you'll have to ask them for or look on billing documents to get this. You're also going to need the billing codes for either the therapy or neuropsych testing services. Every provider can do this a little bit differently. Also remember to ask for any modifiers if you're doing telehealth only or telehealth as an option. You need to understand the number of appointments, for instance with therapy, that you might need over the course of 1 year. And so you can provide a high estimate. So for me, for instance, I provide an estimate of 44 because I think most people go to therapy about once a week, and 44 weeks out of 52 weeks allows for vacation and illness, that kind of thing. And so that's like my high estimate for therapy for a person. Now for units with testing, you're definitely going to have to ask the provider for that because everybody does testing just a little bit differently. Your next step is to call insurance. And whenever you do call insurance, this is the trickiest part, is getting them to talk to you about this. And so it's unlikely that the first person that you talk to is going to be able to authorize a network insufficiency waiver. You may need to ask for the behavioral health number, and even more specifically, you might eventually end up talking to the behavioral health pre-certification department. It just kind of depends on the insurance. And so in my experience, these numbers are not necessarily readily available to you. You may have to just call the number on the back of your card and ask for those departments. If they don't have those departments, then move forward with who you've got. You are then going to ask for a list of providers in network who provide the specialty that you're looking for. So for instance, with my patients, they would ask, I need a list of psychologists who specialize in neurodevelopmental disorders in adults or neurodevelopmental disorders in children. If it's for therapy, you might say, I am looking for a list of providers who provide acceptance and commitment therapy and are in network. And so ideally, your insurance is going to be able to give you this list. There are lists that are online, and I've looked at them a couple of times. Like, I'm listed on many different insurances, and I have not accepted insurance in a very long time. And so these lists are generally out of date. Your next step is going to be to use the list to call around to all the different in-network providers. It shouldn't be too many, and it shouldn't be too hard because most of them are probably out of service or retired or no longer work there, things like that. And so the goal here is that you're taking documentation for each in-network person that you contact. If you cannot find an in-network provider who has the training experience that you need to do the services that you want, or they have a wait list that's exceptionally long, like in my local area, wait list for people who are in network tend to be over a year, sometimes even up to 5 years. And so if you're a family who needs to get assessment done in a timely manner, that's another good reason. Sometimes providers will have limitations for the type of patient they see. So instance, in my locality, some of the autism providers will only see up to a certain age, like 6 or 11 or something like that. And so you want to make sure that this is going to be a provider who's actually going to work for you or for your child, and it is a good match. And if they're not a good match, or there's an exceptionally long wait list, those are all reasons to give to the insurance company. And so now we call back the insurance company. Hopefully you have a direct line, a direct number at this point, and let them know that you are requesting a network insufficiency waiver or a gap exception waiver or a network deficiency waiver. The details matter, unfortunately, because they don't have that if you don't say it right. And so you're going to request that and give them the reasons why. You might even have to show them your documentation. You might need to have a referring provider who's in network who is requesting that you get these services. And so be prepared that you might have to provide all of that type of information to the insurance. Now, all of this is based on my experience as a clinician, but also personally myself, just seeking services in town. And I will say that it's different for everybody, but I've had one thing that's happened is that families have been told to pursue a single case agreement. That's completely different, because a single case agreement is where your provider agrees to accept the in-network insurance rate directly from the insurance. There's a variety of reasons when providers don't accept insurance, and while a provider may agree to do this, I feel like it's probably unlikely that they're going to sign a contract with the insurance company to provide these services at a rate that's often only 50% of what they need to keep their business open. And so it's different, totally different. Single case agreement, not going to be the network insufficiency waiver. Okay, so once you've done all these steps, likely they're going to give you a form to fill out. I've also noticed that you can go into your insurance website and often find the form to submit. I personally did it that way, where I just submitted the form and I put my reasons down on the form and it ran through their process. Sometimes what you're going to notice with the phone calls is that the insurance company will be confused and not have information on that and say they don't have those programs and that kind of thing. So a quick Google search, name of your insurance company, network insufficiency waiver request, should provide the form. So more special notes. Little errors will lead to your paperwork being declined. Again, saying the wrong name. Or using a billing code that has an extra number at the end of it. One reason for this is that they do use AI to screen through the forms, and so it could be that your form is just automatically denied regardless of what you do, and you're going to have to call and you're going to have to request human review to get your form approved. This is a perseverance game for the insurance company. And this is just my personal belief here. But as a consumer who has health insurance and as a provider who helps families with this process, what I have seen is that the families who have the perseverance, the time to be able to look up information, get all the documents together and call the company and stay on hold for a very long time are the ones who are going to end up being successful. So keep that in mind, that you'll likely If you've seen that there is not a sufficient network to provide the services for you, you'll likely get it approved if you keep pushing. And then that brings me to my last little helpful hint, and that is going to be to keep a tremendous amount of documentation. Anytime you talk to anybody at the insurance company, take their name, ask them for what is the reference number for this phone call, take the date and the time. I can't tell you how many times I've called insurance back when I used to accept it, and they had no documentation of prior calls about the same issue. And so you really do have to keep it, because once you show them that you have the documentation for it, they remember. Last piece is that if it is approved, then in my experience, you will get a letter and your provider will get a letter that says it's been approved. And once you have that receipt, then it's okay to go ahead and start services. If you start services before you have the approval and before the approval date, typically those services are not covered at the in-network rate. And so get your letter. If you are really going to need this process to work out for you, don't start services too early. Backdating. So I've had one family who did state that they were effectively able to backdate services by calling customer service and pointing out to them that on prior calls when they were trying to figure this out with insurance, that nobody mentioned the network insufficiency and it's not in policy documentation. And so they did end up backdating it more than 2 months, which was huge. For me personally, whenever I've done it, I've not been able to get backdating accomplished. And I've not heard of any other family being able to get it accomplished. And so I hope this was helpful. And if you found it helpful, please share it with other families, because I think this is a way for us to take advantage of our health insurance that we pay our hard-earned money for. And you guys deserve the best care. We all deserve the best care. All right. Good luck. Bye.